Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today we are joined by one of Bachelor Nation's most well-known personalities, and now, I'm saying it, Nick, the podcast king, Nick Viall. If you watch reality TV, then you've probably seen Nick come across your TV screen over the last decade. Between appearances on The Bachelorette, twice, Bachelor in Paradise, The Bachelor, Dancing with the Stars, Special Forces, The Masked Singer, or some other shows out there, Nick has done it all. More notably, however, Nick has leveraged his reality TV fame into numerous lucrative business endeavors, including establishing one of the top culture podcasts in the world, The Viall Files, that has over 150 million downloads in the last 5 years. Most recently, Nick announced that he has founded his own media company, Envy Media, an audio-first lifestyle company focused on pop culture and relationship-themed shows. Today, we are going to talk all about the evolution of The Viall Files, what led to him starting his own media company and brand, and where he sees his career going in years to come. Nick, this is the second time. Welcome back to Trading Secrets.
Good to be with you, bud.
It's been 2 years since we last had you on,
2 years?
actually. 2 years.
Yeah.
Time flies, huh?
It does, yeah.
Okay, here's what I want to start with you. Just saw you on Special Forces. You know, what'd you think about just your overall, let's talk about your overall character, Nick Viall. What did you think about your character shown on Special Forces?
My character?
Like your overall...
You're talking about my character?
Not
or
like your
the
character is foundation. The character we saw of Nick on Special Forces.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was great too.
Yeah. I didn't think it, I mean, Special Forces is a different animal than, say, most reality shows. Like, you don't, I mean, there is always an edit just because they're such limited on time. But
Yeah.
I don't think that show is really going out of their way to try to edit out specific characters and storylines to the degree that, say, maybe The Bachelor or Love is Blind is. The environment is so intense, and the structure of the show, you know, is so intense on its own that the show kind of takes care of itself in terms of the drama that is unfolds. In fact, if it was a 2-hour show, I think they could have edited in more storylines and more, you know, behind the scenes, not so much behind the scenes, but things that kind of went on in between all the intense shit that they had us do. But as far as how I came across, I was very pleased. I mean, I was pleased with the outcome and how I performed, and yeah, I was happy with how it came off, and I was just, more than anything, was just kind of happy that I got the opportunity to do that.
I love it. Okay, so I asked because last time you were on the show, and it's great that you're wearing the Green Bay Packers shirt right now because you made a connection to the Green Bay Packers when we talked about branding. I forgot the specific name, but you said that there was an analyst that you can't stand.
Oh,
you can't stand
Colin Cowherd?
Colin Cowherd, yeah. And he's a critic of Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers, of course, was on the Packers. But your overall branding talk about that was, no matter what, I tune into his show to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
And you brought it back to yourself saying, people can love me, people can hate me, but all I need is them to tune into the show.
That's the name to care.
And that's it. You need them to care. Yeah. So I want to ask you this, though, because when I saw you on Special Forces, I had this feeling of like emotion for you. I felt for you. I saw a vulnerability side. I also saw like a man that has mental strength at a level that I had never been exposed to. So that was like that Nick. Then we see the podcast Nick. Then we know the Bachelor Nick. Right? There's that. Now we're seeing this like caring, soft, soon-to-be father Nick. There's like all these different Nicks out there. And I think a lot of people have all these different perceptions of you. And you mentioned last show, you just want people to tune in and care what you have to say. If someone said, like, who is Nick? Through all these different things that people are saying, who is Nick? What is the Nick that we tune into?
Well, I guess on some levels, it's everything you've gotten to see. But, I mean, like some loaded, like, who is me?
No, but I'm just curious because, like, when people say, like, you've probably heard it all from you're arrogant to you're the sweetest guy in the world. Like,
sure.
How?
I mean, I guess I can be all those things. I think more than anything, I am someone who, you know, cares very much about my character and who I am as a person, and I care very much about what my inner circle thinks of me.
Yeah.
To the degree that it's important to me to surround myself with people who can hold me accountable, and so obviously their opinions matter to me, and I am someone who obviously is passionate about what I do and works very hard at what I do. And I do have, I think, a lot of different, I guess, layers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I can be all those things. But yeah, I mean, I guess depending on what medium you consume me,
Yeah. Okay.
might change your perception of me, right? Because sometimes I am going to be subject to the medium that I'm a part of. Like if I do, like I'm not ever going to overly edit myself, and I'm not going to try to control what I can't control. Which I'm a big believer in controlling what you can control. So the opposite, I try not to waste too much of my energy trying to control things that are outside of my control.
Yeah.
And reality TV, if you're going to do that, there are a lot of aspects of that are outside of your control, that you simply just have to accept those aspects. Things like, you can't edit the show, that you can't control what people are going to do around you. And to that end, how you come across, might be subject to things outside of your control. And so when I do those things or do those shows, I've always been someone who hasn't spent a lot of time editing myself down out of fear of the things I can't control. And that has sometimes worked against me. Yeah. So, right. And that certainly has affected how people have perceived me, but it hasn't been a primary concern of mine to try to go out of my way to make sure that, if you're going to put yourself out there on any type of major public platform and put in a microphone, so to speak, or giving people access to consume you. I mean, it's just a waste of energy trying to be liked and loved by everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to be loved as much as the next person, but it's also not really any of my business what, people outside my circle think of me. I mean, of course, I'd love to be liked and love to be loved, but it's more important to, just be authentic, and not to sound cliche, but just because I can control that and at least I'm consistent. Because I do think, more than anything, especially on reality TV or just being in the public eye, the thing that hurts people the most, I think, is inconsistency. Just look at Bachelor Nation. Everyone loves a fall from grace. Everyone loves it when like the likable character does the shitty thing and then we can hate on them, right? Because they're showing this inconsistency. I think over time, what I have shown with people is a consistency to be myself. And I think that, if anything, whether they like or dislike me, I think people have come to respect that about me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that do well with business endeavors after the show, you can connect polarizing to a lot of those people for the good or bad, but it drives their business, right? It's part of the equation.
Sure.
But
that's only just because Bachelor Nation specifically washes down their characters. And if you basically have an opinion about anything, you're subjecting yourself to criticism. If you take a stand about anything, Bachelor Nation, the most popular people are the quote unquote the least problematic, and the least problematic are the people who really are the most quiet people who don't really say anything about anyone. You don't really know who they are.
But those might be the most likable people, but that doesn't mean they're the most successful people.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's what I mean. I'm just on the word polarizing. I think is a bit of an eye roll when it comes to that to Bachelor Nation.
Okay.
In terms of look at real polarizing characters out in the media, and I don't think anyone from Bachelor Nation is all that polarizing.
No. You're right. Exactly. When you compare it to Bachelor Nation, I'm not connecting, your brand at all to anyone in those worlds. But I think the idea, though, is that a lot of people get a lot of love and get a lot of hate. I think at the end of the day, it's about how you can do with it. And for some reason, what I'm impressed by, Nick, is that when people do give you that feedback, I've never seen you once, I don't know, I haven't seen you bite into it. I haven't seen you step into it. I just see you always continuing to be yourself and not feeding it.
Yeah, there's no greater power, especially nowadays, than the power to ignore things or people.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last question I have on this, because I'm just fascinated by it, does negative criticism impact you in any way personally that you get from your business?
Of course. I mean, I'm not I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And so I can be affected by negative criticism. I just do a pretty good job of policing myself.
Yeah.
And I have tools in place to protect my own mental health. Yeah. And if things do break through, I can have a bad day. But I always, try to think big picture, Like I'm running a real company now and I have multiple employees. And so I just don't have time to think of small problems.
Yeah, like what someone's saying on a blog
I'm every day I'm tackling more pressing issues.
Right.
And so unless there's an issue that's bigger than a problem I'm tackling at any given day, I just don't have time to worry about,
Petty things.
Petty things. I really just don't. It just becomes more of a kind of like a math equation in my head. It's like, is this problem bigger than this problem? No, then if it is, let me know.
And if you guys haven't listened to the first episode ever with Nick, go back and listen to it. It was 2 years ago. But Nick, one of the things you said on that episode was that after Paradise, you moved to LA and you were living off $50,000. You think about the way your life.
It was a little less than that, but
so
my savings.
Yeah,
a little less than that.
Little less than that. Yeah. But then you think about,
but just like that was like a set amount.
That was a set amount.
That wasn't. I was making that. I was making nothing at the time.
Absolutely nothing, right? So you had some money to live off. You think about what you've done since then. We'll get into some of your top revenue streams, but when you think that you weren't making any money, you had $50,000 in the bank, and now your podcast, as of today, is streaming number 5 in the world based on this Gypsy Rose episode, and you think about the financial success you've had, what do you think has been the number one trading secret that has got you from there to here today?
Just consistency in, prioritizing my business and treating it like a business, Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And just reinvest back into my business. I currently have 8 employees. I have 8 employees.
8 employees, and they're all in your podcast. They're all working for your podcast, or are they part of your overall
they work
empire?
For me. They were their podcast is they work for NV Media.
Okay, got it. We're going to jump into NV Media in a second. Let's talk about this. We were on the PR route. One thing I think you've done, I do think consistency has been good, but for so many years, since 2016, you are always relevant in the news. You just are. And my question is, do you think that has to do with specific strategies or tactics?
I make no effort to be relevant in the news.
Really?
None. It's not even a thought of mine. But I am doing things with my show, I guess, that keep me relevant. In fact, more times than not with my team, like my team is aware of like clickbait.
Yeah.
Right? They understand that like to be mindful of things that are quotable.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
So every once in a while they'll edit out something that I just don't want to feel like I want to deal with like an annoying headline, right? As I develop my show more and more, I mean, I've been lucky enough to have incredibly relevant guests and that, they're driving the headlines for my show. And, and I guess on some level, like my relationship status is a bit of interest to people, or at least pop culture, outlets. And so, me meeting Natalie, getting engaged to Natalie, getting pregnant with Natalie. Certainly those have been headlines, but I don't read my press. Okay. I don't I'm not aware of my, I think my manager has my Google alerts on. Yeah. But again, when I spoke earlier about protecting my mental health, that's how I do it. And I've had lots of conversations with lots of people in Bachelor Nation about protecting their mental health or lack thereof, and how they always, they're referencing reading Reddit and reading their comments and, reading their press, and they all act like it's fun or they don't care, it doesn't affect them, and it does. And again, you are editing yourself when you do that. You are taking and seeking the advice of people you don't know, never heard of, don't know their qualifications, their credentials, you don't even know if they're real, and yet you are listening to their ideas and perception about you. And that will affect how you go about your life.
You're then inherently, whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously, you're then editing the version of yourself to adhere to them. That's interesting.
You're doing what they think you should do.
Yep, and that definitely impacts career direction.
They're on Reddit talking about you. I don't know if you want to take life or business advice from those people, but yet when you are reading those comments to the degree in which many people do, like you are consciously or subconsciously, like actively giving them power and access into how you make decisions for yourself and your life. And I don't think that usually turns out
beneficial. All right. Well, what about this? The idea of, so we talked a little bit about press. You had mentioned like that is nothing that you've sought out. It seeks you out. But then the press definitely helps, I think, run the engine. There's this overarching theme of like all press is good press. What's your business take on that with someone that's in the press often? And today, you're everywhere. This moment right now, you're everywhere in the news.
It's going well, yeah. But I guess I agree with I agree with it in principle.
Okay.
Especially if you can have the tools in place to protect your mental health.
Okay.
I'm unaware that I'm in any
Anything.
news today.
Right.
The Gypsy Rose episode dropped today. That was a big deal
Sure.
for us. It was a big exclusive for us, and obviously, I went in today knowing there would be a lot of eyes on my show.
Yeah.
And then how we conducted the interview in itself. That's important to me. But that's all I know.
Okay. You talked about reinvesting. Last question I got on PR. Have you found that investing in PR has been beneficial to the overall return of your businesses?
Absolutely. But it's all about timing too. Like publicists are very expensive, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to make sure you have something to promote. I had a publicist. My first experience working with a publicist was during Dancing with the Stars. They recommend it as it works, and the longer you are on Dancing with the Stars, the more you make. And so, you can pretty quickly
see your return,
figure out the ROI there.
Yep.
But after I was done with Dancing with the Stars, I quickly got rid of my publicist because I didn't have anything active to promote, and so a lot of people will hold on to publicists for the clout.
Sure.
Say they have one. A publicist will also get you invited to a lot of the relevant parties.
Yeah.
That wasn't a priority for me, and so I went without a publicist for a couple of years. And it wasn't until Viall Files got created, and then I had some success that I look into getting a publicist. I think I was 2 years into my show exists. I just had my, this week was our 5th year anniversary for Viall Files.
Congrats.
And so I didn't get a publicist for the show until 2 years into the show.
Okay.
And at that point, I thought the show was successful enough that it could justify
the cost.
And, the primary focus was always to, promote the show and then promote me as the host of the show.
Got it.
So yeah, it's been incredibly beneficial, and then when I wrote my book, obviously that there was plenty for them to promote there. So I had to make sure I had to give them something to promote. I had to give them something to work with.
Okay. To see the return. Talk about the cost. What do you pay for a publicist on average, would you say?
It's in the ballpark of $5,000.
Yeah, $5,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
So then you're looking for them to get the press out there that's going to generate enough return. I think your overall take is you have to have business momentum and something big to be promoting to get.
Yeah, it's also, especially in Hollywood, it's okay to say to yourself or anyone who's asking, it's not the right time for me right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if, a lot of people who go on reality TV, there's a pressure of keeping the momentum going. But if the only thing you have to promote is the fact that you're on reality TV, I can tell you right now, you don't need a publicist.
Yeah.
You don't need a publicist to be messy.
Yeah.
I don't need a publicist to go on my show and give an opinion that, E! News or anyone else might find to be, scandalous in nature, even though I don't, and then make a headline about it. That's not why you need a publicist. And so anyone in reality TV, if they're willing to speak their mind, and be a little messy, you have a chance to get some kind of press. You don't need a publicist for that.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of knowing the difference.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's cool. One thing you and I talked about at, I think it was Tyler Cameron's not-for-profit, where you asked me, with some of the stuff I'm doing, what's my overall goal with it? And what I told you was financial freedom. I want to be able to build enough with what I have to then create enough cash inflow to reinvest into other things to just give me financial freedom. I then asked the same question back to you, and your response was something of the nature, and I was a bit surprised by it, but you're like, listen, I don't care if one more person in my entire life recognizes me. I don't care. I just want to build businesses and build financial wealth for my family and continue to do big things. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I like your answer too, financial freedom. Being a public figure is a cost of doing business at this point.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, because there are benefits to being in the public.
There's a lot of
having attention.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of headache that comes with it too.
True.
I have found to enjoy more aspects of just being successful in business than being successful in fame.
Yeah. Well, in the limelight,
it's just a headache,
Yeah.
It's just it's just a headache. It doesn't really bring you any real happiness or value.
Sure.
It can bring you access and attention. It can help be a way to promote the things that you're doing. Again, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But, you just, anytime you bring attention to yourself, you bring attention to yourself. And, not all attention is good attention,
Yeah.
guess I'm just aware of that. And I just, I've been lucky enough in my life, especially in the public space, that like, I don't know, it doesn't really, when you're the Bachelor, you have a nice little moment.
Yeah.
And you get incredible access, and it's a really cool feeling to be the quote unquote it person for a moment, in the center of attention for a moment. But it's hectic. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, and it's nerve-wracking, and can be stressful, and you're constantly worried about everything, and you literally have a microscope on you, and it's stressful, especially nowadays where everyone's picking apart everything you're doing and saying and things like that. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's not something I'm actively seeking, but I understand that I've chose to operate in the space, and that it comes with the territory, and it certainly helps me get to the places I'm trying to go, especially with my show. And I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to, especially now that I'm an expecting father, I just want to support the people I love and be able to hang out with them. That's it, and relax.
I love it. I think it's one of your secret sauces that people don't know about is the fact that that's not what you're chasing. You're focused on the business. You're consistent. You're disciplined. And I think most people that you probably interview, that you sit across the table from, are not that way. And you've interviewed some big people in the reality TV space. You've also talked to a lot. Like, do you think that most people kind of get stuck in the business perspective from just chasing to always be in the limelight, as opposed to doing it with a solid, thoughtful
I can't really
direction?
speak because I haven't had those types of conversations with those people. So I think it'd be unfair to me to cast any type of judgment on what I think drives them that way.
Fair.
But I don't think a lot of people have taken the approach I have taken.
Yeah, well, we know
that's just a guess.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And again, like I think, just like we talked about earlier, if you can't go on reality TV and have Joe Mobley and I have talked about this. Like there's a level of narcissism in all of us who have gone on this show. Like you obviously like attention to some degree.
Yeah.
If you've chosen a life in public life. And so, obvious as I say all this, I'm acknowledging that I also there's a part of me that's always liked attention, enjoyed attention, but like now that I'm in this place, I'm not like I've accepted as a necessary evil. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, for all the people who are reading have their Google alerts on, are reading Reddits about themselves, just reading their comments, on a regular basis. Like, obviously why are they doing that? They're caring very much about what people have to say, and it's validating them. And I think in some way that's letting them know what they think they should or shouldn't be doing or something.
Yep.
But that, to me, hasn't been the recipe for success.
Okay. Well, let's get into a little bit of your success, because you have had a lot of it. So 2024, top 3 revenue streams with the businesses you have. What do you think the top 3 business revenue streams are for you?
My show would be number 1.
Okay.
I guess in social media.
Does social media come even close to what you gross from your show?
I don't think so.
Interesting. Like 1/5, 1/10?
To be totally honest, like, that's a micro question, and I'm thinking about macro problems. So, like, the ratio in terms of,
You're so far from focused on creating content for the purpose of monetization that thinking about what percentage Instagram revenue is to your beast is so minute to you. It's not even
couldn't be more insignificant.
That crosses your life.
I don't care about it.
Interesting. So if that being said, that's number 2. Obviously, podcast is a clear number 1 and drives, would you say, almost 100% of your day-to-day routine?
Yes.
Okay.
My day-to-day routine.
Your day-to-day routine.
That's my focus. Everything off of that is social media.
Yeah.
Again, my focus is the show and the media company.
Yep.
And everything rolls up to that.
Okay, so let's go into some of the moves you've made. You were with Cast Media. You signed with them. That's really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong from a perception, that's really where the show went next level. It went from like good to great. But you left Cast Media. Tell me a little bit about what made you leave and go in your own direction.
Yeah, I mean, the show, I started my show in 2019 in January, and, we had some early success right away, which is funny, though. I had a conversation with someone recently just trying to give them perspective on starting a podcast and what they could expect and things like that. But my show had early success.
Okay.
And it still took us 9 months to generate $25,000 worth of revenue for the show.
9 months?
Yeah.
Interesting.
In 2019. And our show always did well, and...
Can I ask a question after that?
Sure.
25,000 in 9 months. Is it fair to say you probably in most episodes make more than 25,000 per episode or per week.
I mean, I'm not really sharing that stuff.
Okay, yeah. I got to ask though. I got to do my
but
job.
I hear you. We're doing very well. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even like there was in the 10th month, I know we generated $25,000 in the 10th month.
Okay.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
But it took 9 months to get even to 25, and then the 10th month we did 25 in 1 month. It was like, it took 9 months for our show to really, I think, proof of concept, male host, female audience. I think it took a while for advertisers at least to, does the show work?
Was that part of the reason to getting some of your female co-hosts?
I've always had women voices.
Oh,
on
you
my
had
show.
since day one?
Yeah, since day one. I mean, there's always been rotating, but it's and having a women's audience, it's always important for me to have women voices. Most of our guests are women.
Yeah,
that's always been the case. But we've had women's voices since the beginning.
Okay, Cast Media though, the reason for the departure when you think about talking to me about the business financial move there.
It really just came down to, at the end of the day, the company I'm with, Libsyn now, they just made a better offer.
Okay.
Really came down to that. That being said, I think it was just time for me to move on from Cast. They've been in the news a lot, but I will just say, like, for all their faults, I guess I was able to create a successful show with them.
Yeah.
I've always been like I've always been the main producer on it. I own the show. It's my show. No one cares about your business more than you.
Right.
Obviously, that is a very true statement.
Sure.
But it was their studios. They had a team. They had their editors. They packaged. They ran post with their people. And so the first 2 years, I didn't have any employees.
Oh, yeah.
And then I hired my first two as like social media assistants, and they have grown. One's still with me. Yeah. And then obviously we've grown a lot since then. But so the real answer is I just got a better deal.
Cool.
But with part of that is I also wanted to produce my own show and do my own studio and have my freedom. When I was going through my last contract, that wasn't necessarily a must. Like if they're, the business model, there's more and more companies like, your Dear Medias, right? They do a lot of production of their shows, and there's other companies that do absolutely none. I'm with a company that has nothing. They just sell their shows. Okay.
So when you say a better deal, though, and I know you're not going to get into the numbers of the deal, but just the structure is the two things you're negotiating, right, is a guarantee and then a percentage split. Correct. So if you get better both of those, then you would go.
Sure, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I also thought that, I had only been with Cass at that point, and as someone who has a background in sales, I'm aware that not every salesperson is created equal.
Correct.
And I was curious about the quality of other sales teams.
Okay.
And my thoughts were proven to be correct, where I'm very happy with where I'm at right now and the sales team that they have.
Message heard.
And it's been a really great partnership. And so now I produce everything on my own. And so that was a goal and something I wanted to do. And I used this kind of new relationship with Libsyn to kind of be the catalyst that drove me to produce my show entirely. So I have my own studios. I run my own studios. And that gave me the freedom to then start the media company and expand, because I'm actually, I have the bones in place of doing my own show, my own team, my own studios. We have our own post-production process. We have our own process, and now we're just implementing that process that we've developed as a team into creating other shows.
I think it's genius. You're gonna set yourself up for massive success. I think about what the potential exit is from Dear Media since what they've done. They've built a huge company at a great valuation. Sounds like you're on the path to do just that. But is there any bit of conflict of interest there if you're with a network and then your production company is creating a show under your network? Aren't you technically competing with the network that you're signed to?
No, I mean they're part of it.
Got it. Okay.
So
it's a partnership.
They're still my sales arm.
Got it. Okay. Understood.
So
okay. Cool.
They're theirs too.
All right.
Well, I'm giving them more things to sell.
Okay. Perfectly said. And if you guys remember in the last episode, Nick started his career at Salesforce.com. And if you can make it in selling at Salesforce.com, you can sell anything, anywhere. So go check that episode out. We're on the podcast topic. There's really only one question to ask you here, Nick. We could have had this episode 1 hour and 1 minute with this question. And this topic, Gypsy Rose. Everyone's talking about it. People are blowing up. I said to people, give me questions for Nick. Every question was about Gypsy Rose. So the first question I got you regarding Gypsy Rose, did you have to pay Gypsy Rose to come on your podcast?
I did not, no.
You did not. No. So then the second question for Gypsy Rose is, how did you land the most wanted person? You're competing, by the way, against Fox News, CNN, ABC, Good Morning America. She chooses to do the long-form interview with you. How'd you do it?
Correct you, I wouldn't say I'm competing against the ones you just listed.
But you got an exclusive. I got
the exclusive podcast.
Okay.
Which to me matters.
Oh, right? It matters.
She did GMA, she did The View prior to doing
the podcast.
Okay. I mean, obviously, had she did mine first before she ever spoke to anyone, that would have been massive. But it was still incredibly massive for my show to land Gypsy's first podcast, because the podcast medium long form is a completely different platform
than a quick snippet.
It's as I always tell my guests, it's your opportunity to have my audience kind of sit in the room with you, be a friend, to have a conversation that they don't get to have or see in these quick soundbitey type of interviews that are always highly edited and fit into some sort of storyline that they've already predetermined. And
sure.
And then podcast is very different. We can go to the heavy questions and the light questions and things like that. How did I get them? I have a great team. I invest in, I have bookers who work for my show, and it's just, and it was them that secured Gypsy. So shout out to Claire and her team.
How long ago did they so the interview came out today?
I knew that I was going to get the Gypsy Rose interview when she was still in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was the week prior to her release.
Do you know who you were competing against? Other shows they were considering giving the exclusive to?
I'm assuming everyone. Yeah. Who wouldn't have wanted her?
Yeah, but I guess the question is, who has the bookers that have the ability to get in front of her while she's in prison?
I do know. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I'd only be speculating, but I feel like I can confidently speculate that anyone would have said yes.
Oh yeah, of course. I agree with that.
I think I have a great team, and I do think we have been successful in getting some good guests. To that end, we've also been successful in getting timely guests with timely stories, and I think that matters. And I think we've proven as a show to be able to handle and deliver on those types of interviews. Mm-hmm. And I think what's also been good for our show is that we have invested in our dramatic sizzles. That was something that I just decided I wanted to do with the team, and I really emphasized we want movie quality sizzle reels.
Yeah.
We're developing these, we're these episodes, we're delivering on these stories, and also let's have some fun. Let's have some fun with the content we're putting out. And so we've made some really cool sizzles. I have a great team. Allie, who my employee's been with me the longest, she does most of the sizzles. Usually I'm kind of giving her a vision that I'm looking for, and she executes with perfection most of the time. And I think to that end, it's I think we've also created a little bit of a culture with potential guests who see our sizzles
and they want to be part
and kind of envision themselves, maybe being a part of a sizzle one day.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely helped.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the genius things too, I want to acknowledge this, that one word I keep hearing over and over is invest and reinvest. And I think people really need to take that into their lives, into whatever businesses they have, into their brand. Even if it's just building your resume, you have to continue to invest and reinvest. Clearly, Nick, you've done that. You have these sizzles that are unbelievable, but I also think the concept of when breakups happen, and so I've learned this, obviously the attention's at its highest point because everyone wants to know what happens. So a lot of people that want to be on your show are at that moment in the news at the highest point. You also at times want to speak your truth, and you need a platform to do it, and they know they can do it in a safe, credible way with you. What a genius machine that'll never stop giving.
I hope so.
Do you agree with that model has been part of the driving force? Breakups create relevance create downloads, people need a place to speak about it, and you've created the credible source to do it.
I don't think I thought of it in that kind of path, so to speak.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, as a podcast, and everyone who has a podcast at some level is a storyteller.
Sure. Yeah.
We have different types of shows. We have our Ask Nicks, we have our recap episodes, and then we have our Going Deepers. And the Going Deepers are more interview-driven episodes. And whoever comes on, especially if they have a story, is, again, telling that story. And I want to give them that platform to tell theirs and create a safe space while at the same time be willing to ask the relevant, tough questions. But at the same time, I'm not trying to gotcha anyone.
Yeah.
You know, like it's my job, I think, as a podcast host, at least that's how I approach it, is to make my guests the most comfortable so that they can be the most honest and vulnerable. A guest who comes in on feeling comfortable, they're going to want to sit down. They're going to want to open up. They're going to be like, you know what else? Let me tell you, and that's why like we do longer interviews, and the first, 10, 15 minutes are, like Gypsy, for example, like I was nervous, interviewing her, just you could feel the moment,
totally.
And, I asked her if she was nervous. She said no, and I believe her. She was like a champ. But I will say, like, after the first 10 minutes, you're feeling each other out.
Yeah.
I didn't have a rapport with Gypsy. She didn't know me, vice versa. She did tell me she watched my season of The Bachelor. That was pretty cool.
There you go.
But 20 minutes in, then she's opening up and she's cracking jokes about like trying to hook up with her husband Ryan the night before and getting turned down by him. And so it's just creating that atmosphere and that rapport and that trust. And yeah, you got, and that's always going to work best when they feel comfortable.
Okay. Got it.
And I'm always prepping my guests too. Like, I'm not, again, like for the most part, I'll tell you the questions that I'm going to ask, it's the stories that people want to know.
Yeah.
I'll just, if a question comes up that's relevant for me to ask, just to qualify what you're saying, I'll ask it, but it's not my job to play, I guess, judge, so to speak. That's my audience's job.
Yeah.
It's my, I'll let them judge.
Yeah.
They can judge what they think of Gypsy and Ryan, their relationship, and whether they think Gypsy is contrite. I mean, I shared my opinion, but like, it was my job to ask her the questions, to get her to speak, and and whoever listens gets to spend an hour and a half plus with me, Gypsy, and Ryan to listen, be in the room with us, hear every little word spoken.
Yep.
Can hear any pauses or, her tone, her flow, and they can judge for themselves whether they agree or disagree, or, Clayton in those types of interviews. So I just want them to come in and be able to express themselves.
Okay. Have you ever had to pay someone to come on your show?
No.
Have you ever had someone ask you to pay them to
Sure.
be a
I mean,
guest?
I've helped with travel a little bit.
Okay.
But usually
Other than
not.
that,
Other than
no.
that, no. I mean, yeah. I mean, listen. I think it goes. The benefits goes both ways. I mean,
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Look at the total eyeballs. On it.
yeah. And we've created a show where I think we're giving people an opportunity to get their story out.
Okay.
And they also know that they're going to have the podcast, and then they're going to have a team of people pumping out some incredible, clips and sizzle reels and all those things. And if you want your story out, we promise we'll get it out.
I love it.
And so, again, I think we just created an environment that it makes sense for both parties.
Cool. Can you share your top 3 episodes and like around downloads, or is that the amount?
Well, our top episodes, I will say, have done over 2 mil.
Over 2 million downloads.
Yeah.
Your top episode. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You can't share who those guests were?
Oh, I'm guessing Gypsy's going to be, if it's all said and
just-
done, she'll be one of those.
2 million.
Raven from Love is Blind.
Okay.
And that was a big one off the top of my head. I do know Greg and Victoria's was big when
that
they
was
came out for the
super
first
timely,
time.
yeah.
Marshall from Love is Blind was big. Black China was really big. A few other ones, but yeah.
Huh. Wow. Guys, I don't think you realize how big 2 million is. It is massive. I just have a couple more podcast questions. Who do you consider your biggest competition at this point? Who is your Coke? Who's Pepsi?
I don't know. I embrace
I
competition.
like the laugh, though.
Yeah, I've always respected what Alex is doing over at Color Daddy. That's for sure. I really respect what she's doing. What I respect so much about what she's doing is that after her big, $60 million Spotify deal, which obviously was very publicly talked about, she also reinvented her show, and she's done it very successfully.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to her drive and consistency and determination. She's not someone who kind of rested on her laurels after getting a $60 million deal. She started a show that had a co-host, and it was, very graphic audio escapades of two young women. And now she is, considered by a lot of people kind of like the up and coming Oprah of certain interviews. Yeah. And that's a credit to what she's doing and the guests she's getting. So I wouldn't call it like, every podcast is my competition. Yeah. Every podcast is an opportunity for someone. Any pop culture relationship podcast is my competition. Okay. But I also I think competition is great. Yeah. I don't run from competition. And when I see other shows who book good guests or are up in the charts, I might go, oh, fuck, that was a good get, man.
It's so funny you said that, good get, because I remember when I got the Tinder swindler on, one of the people. Yeah. And I remember your exact text to me was, good get, man. I was like, wow.
I like to see what other people are doing. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me motivated. Yeah. So I don't run from competition. Yeah. And I like to compliment people who I see having success and doing it well. And again, that just keeps me sharp. Competition hasn't stopped me once from doing what I've been able to do.
I love it.
And so I just think there's my biggest focus, like staying power, outlasting people, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
That's a good playing the long game.
That's a good one.
Especially this town, it's a lot of pops, very short term, spikes, and then people disappear. And my big focus is longevity.
You mentioned Oprah. Quick rapid fire question. One dream guest. Who would it be?
Taylor Swift, Harry Styles.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, I want to transition to your media company. We talked a little bit about it, Envy. We saw that you're bringing one podcast on. Are you already in the process of recruiting other podcasts? How big do you expect this to be? What's the vision?
It's early. I definitely want to do it right more than anything. So I have no expectations on myself in terms of how fast or how big I want to grow. I'm not a big over-promise and under-deliver type of guy. I've done that before, and I don't like the feeling of, I like showing more than I like doing. I think signing Katie and Dana were perfect, and I thought the timing was perfect, and I'm really excited to have those two women be my, host my first show that I'm producing that I'm not on. I have had conversations with other people. So yeah, there's active conversations, but I don't know if something could happen in 2 weeks, but most likely, those things take time. So maybe in a month or two I could launch another one, but who knows? Maybe there's a world where I don't launch another one this year. It's possible, unlikely, who knows? But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't have any real expectations other than I really want to do it right. I've seen a lot of people attempt to do what I'm attempting to do and fail.
Totally.
And I think sometimes maybe they're just scaling too fast or they don't know what they want it to be. And I want whatever I do, I want to have quality shows. Yeah. And it's a competitive market out there. I mean, the podcast industry right now isn't growing, it's shrinking. Yeah, and so I'm trying to grow in an industry that's currently shrinking.
Right.
So there's risks there.
Can I ask you about that? Because you had said, you've seen a lot of people come in and try and do what you're doing and fail. I think we've also both seen a lot of people try to start a podcast and soon thereafter fail. I'm curious from like a business leadership perspective, Dana and Katie, it could have been anyone. Almost anyone would have entertained a conversation to start a podcast. What is it about those two that you see them making it in this space?
Well, one, they got relevancy. Mm-hmm. Katie's an OG cast member on arguably the hottest cable television show out there.
Yep.
And I think they're two women who have a lot to say, and they're willing to say it. And I think more than anything, you need that. Yeah. A willingness to be open and vulnerable with their life, your life rather, because that's what they want to talk about. They're two women in their 30s who have had untraditional lives, I suppose you could say that, whatever that means, and they're open and willing to talk about that, especially. There's a lot of stigmas and stereotypes out there for everyone, but especially like single women in their 30s or people who want to reinvent themselves in their middle ages, especially women. Yep. Single women often are very, if they're in a relationship that's toxic and not serving them well, they'll stay in it much longer than they should for fear of going back out there and being single and being alone, and what are their friends and family and society going to say about them. And for all the women out there who identify with that type of fear, I think Katie and Dana are two women that they can follow along with and have that support, to have that courage to get out there and live vicariously through them. And so I just think they're excellent choices in that regard. And I think, again, you just have to, as I told them, like, listen, you just have to figure out how to bring drama to your show.
Interesting.
You know, I don't care where
how
it comes
you do
from.
it, but it's got to come.
It's just got to, you know, people watch, you know, it's got to be entertaining. It's got to be dramatic. And dramatic can mean very different things, but you have to bring in an element of drama. What's next? What are you know, everyone's done the whole, like, today we have the expert from, you know, the attachment style expert, the media, the medium expert, the food expert, you know, that playbook in podcasting is worn down and dumb and it's been played out. And, you know, we stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the overall business landscape of American consumers. You're talking about the dichotomy of education versus entertainment. And if you look at every single forum, entertainment is going to get the bigger dollar amounts. It's going to get the bigger buzz. It's going to get the people lining up. Look at Taylor Swift, look at Beyonce, $1 billion plus shows versus an educational forum. In America, we want entertainment. Entertainment is drama, and entertainment is always going to sell over education. The media company, though, Envy, I'm just curious, from an investment standpoint, we talk a lot of dollars and cents here. Did you have to front any money to start it, or was it an equity deal?
No, everything is 100% funded by our success at the current moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a good way to say it.
Something we'd like to keep, but, you know, and it's possible.
Let's go. That's a good way to start a business. All right, I got a little bit more time with you here, Nick, and I want to transition to my second book. It's called Talk Money to Me. It's all about love and money. So I want to ask you a little bit about your relationship with love and money, like with you and Natalie. Do you guys have any type of rules or systems as you manage your career finances that have seen a ton of success or that have seen a ton of failure?
I don't think so. I mean, again, we're in a very fortunate position. I always think long term.
Yep.
You know, as a couple, we've had conversations about just acknowledging, you know, the type of success that we've had in the past couple years and recognizing that nothing's guaranteed in the future. Yep. And then, you know, so we are mindful of that. I've had the best year of my life financially for the past, I don't know.
Every year is outperformed
every year since 2015.
Okay. And so will 2023 be larger than 2022?
Well, it was.
It was. Yeah, that's what
2024. I mean, you know, you mentioned I've done over 150 million downloads in our 5 years.
Yep.
We did almost 60 million last year.
60 million. Wow.
So we've had, you know, do the math there. And in 1 out of our 5 years, we did over a third of our downloads.
Holy shit.
So, but we'll see. I'm hoping for 100 mil this year.
100 million downloads is the goal? Yeah. And are you going to increase episode output to get there or stay at the same level?
Right now, no.
Okay.
I don't foresee that happening.
Okay.
It's not there's only so many days left in the week. We already do 4 once a month, but I don't see that changing anytime. Maybe. We'll see. But right now, no.
Okay, I'm going to throw a number.
That's not the goal. I don't think we have to do that to get there.
Okay, I'm going to throw a number. You could say above, below, or you can say GFY. GFY means myself. 3 million annual revenue for your podcast. Above, below, or GFY?
I'm going to go GFY.
Okay, how about 1.5 million?
I'm gonna go GFY.
Okay, I'm getting a good GFY.
What did
last year, 2 years ago, I asked you.
It
was 750, and you said above. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess
think
we could
once you get past that number, so to speak, I don't think there's any upside into
sharing the
number. Sharing.
Okay, that's good. All right.
Again, I think you're getting into attracting the wrong attention conversations.
Okay, I see. You get the attention from that comes, but I think it also is inspiration for a lot of people out there. See 2 years ago.
I hope people feel very inspired by my success.
Right?
I mean, listen. I'm kidding. I've been able to do a lot of dream come true things with what I've been able to accomplish with this show. First, buying my grandfather's lake house back and bringing it back into my family.
That's pretty cool.
Being able to support my parents, in the twilight of their life. Hopefully not the twilight, but they've given me so much of their life and sacrificed so much for their kids, and to be able to give back to them is incredibly rewarding feeling, and to be able to support my family and do the things that I get to do. I feel very lucky and privileged that I get to do that, and I'm very grateful for that. So hopefully that is inspiring.
That is inspiring. I think that's really inspiring. But I do think, like, if you look at the mechanics of business, there's a point where revenue comes in that you can afford to reinvest in people, especially like you have people that are living in LA. Like you have a lot, 7, 8 people. That's a big dollar amount you're paying. At $750K of revenue, it gets a little tighter when you have 8 people on the payroll. You know what I mean? So they're also, I think, with all businesses.
Well, here, I'll give you this number. I'm spending more than that number you asked last time.
Interesting. Okay, so there you go. And I think let's use this as education. You're spending that amount to reinvest into your business. And so people out there that are starting businesses, put that in perspective as you scale, because you can't scale without reinvesting. You can't.
I mean, it's funny. My uncle, who he consults on the side. He's fine, but he does my books for me, because he has the time for it, doesn't need to do it. And it's just fun to have like someone in the family, who you can trust, help with your money.
Yeah.
And I just remember as a kid, as a young entrepreneur, he always told me most entrepreneurs don't reinvest in their business.
Yep.
And a lot of people, have the houses and the boats and all this shit, and their businesses don't grow, and they eventually die.
Yep. Exactly.
And so that's just something I took to heart.
Yeah.
And I want to keep growing, and I'm doing just fine in terms of the life I get to live and the things I get to do.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be driving a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
For
sure.
And I'd rather invest that in another editor.
Yep. I love it.
And another, or another qualified employee who can maybe bring in an idea or, make a dramatic sizzle that, entices another big name guest to want to do my show.
I love it. That's working. You don't need a G-Wagon when you got a professional editor putting those types of clips out. It's incredible. A couple more things I got to ask you. Talk about this revenue. This is educational. This is good drama. It's not bad drama. You could also tell me to GFY. Do you have a take on prenups?
Yeah, I think they're great. Or I think they're
okay.
Totally
So you're
fine.
pro prenup then?
Yeah, I mean, like marriage nowadays, it's not what it used to be.
No.
And again, prenup with the idea that, the assets you come into the marriage are your assets.
Yep.
And things that you do together as a couple can be and there's exceptions to every rule, but like if someone's against that on its own, then why?
Yeah, I agree with
ask
you.
yourself why.
I'm team prenup and team postnup, right? Because things happen after you're married, and you can adjust things based on how those things work.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think everything's different.
Sure.
And there's every relationship has a different situation. But again, the premise of a prenup being like everyone's, what they come into the relationship is theirs. Like if someone's making a big fight over that,
there's other issues.
There's other things going on.
It was fascinating. We had Alex Bennett on the podcast. She married the owner of OKC, who's a billionaire. And they said, Alex, you're not signing a prenup. And she was like uneducated on the topic. She's like, okay, sounds good. We'll get married. Well, they got divorced. And she ended up having to pay him because they tied all assets, any type of return on investments in a trust and on paper. He had no money coming in. So the idea of just like having these conversations is important. So it's always interesting to hear different people's takes from different places.
Look, guys,
it's a wild world.
You're the wrong person to marry.
Let me ask you this though. Wedding planning, it's coming up for you. You got the wedding ready to go. You know where it's going to be. How about from any tips or tricks on the whole idea of like budgeting or spending when it comes to money in wedding planning?
I don't have any tips or tricks.
You're just like, I overspent.
I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in to have the wedding I want.
Okay, let's ask you this.
I'm also very fortunate that me spending on a wedding has upside.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so
when you're thinking about just the business side of it,
yeah. I mean,
just the more eyeballs.
That's a plus side of being a public figure.
Yep. Hannah Godwin came on today and she talked about their wedding. The person who was working her dress invested big into PR and analytics to monitor it. And their wedding did 60 million impressions.
Yeah.
60 million. So there is a business behind this stuff. It's interesting. Well, I think what you just did too is tease us. We're all going to watch. And then when we watch, impressions will be off the charts and you'll talk about that upside. I want to talk about Bachelor real quick, just in general. It's a very high level business relationship with the show. In a good place, like Golden Bachelor. I didn't see you there. Would have thought you would have been there. Like where's like the business relationship with the show?
I think it's great. I mean, as my show grows, I'm just attached less and less to it. We're just covering other things and experience a lot of success in that space. So, quite frankly, as far as the Viall files, like we go where the the hype is, where the story is. And so that has taken us a little away from Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
But no, relationship's still strong. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as far as Golden, I mean, I was busy prepping for Gypsy. And, I'm very careful about saying yes to Bachelor opportunities. At the same time, I'm also a member of the press as far as the Bachelor franchise is concerned.
Yeah.
So that's something they have to take into consideration, when having me at events or not having me at events.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just, I'm far less inclined to be a part of those types of events. It's not that I never would, and there's always exceptions to every rule, but it has to make sense just because, now that I'm having success in other spaces, I think it's important to keep that momentum going in that direction rather than kind of revisit, old friends, so to speak. But I always, Bachelor got, I know I never speak negatively about my experience.
Yep.
I've always been open that I've had my frustrations with the show as everyone else has, but I knew what I signed up for. I didn't know what I signed up for in terms of what the Bachelor experience was, but I knew I signed up for things that are outside of my control.
Okay.
And so I'm grateful for my time on the show and grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful for what a lot of the producers have done for me, even though that hasn't always been positive. And so my views on my experience with them has always been net positive.
Okay. It's a growing, changing relationship, but a net positive one. Just a couple more questions. And we've heard you talk a little bit about going to school to be a therapist. I was just curious, the career direction there. Is that
still very much? I've looked into schools, talked to my therapist about different types of schools. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get started this year.
Okay.
I mean, 2023 truly was one of the crazy years of my life. Getting engaged, the success of the show, buying my grandfather's house, finding out Natalie was pregnant, going, doing, and winning Special Forces is like
crazy.
Like maybe in my top 10. But I had a crazy year. I had a very wild year of insane, impactful things and wonderful moments of my life. And so, what was the point of bringing that up? What was the question?
I was just curious. We transitioned from The Bachelor to just overall, just the year and everything else.
I had a big year, so we'll see how this year goes. But 2023 will be hard to beat. Yeah, overall. But then again, I am getting married and I am having my first kid. And, we started with Gypsy Rose and Clayton and Kylie. Who was cheated on in Bachelor Nation.
Wow. So. Okay. A lot of action. Nick, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. The last thing I got for you, you mentioned Special Forces, winning it. When you compare the mental endurance on Special Forces to any of the other shows that you went on, Dancing with the Stars, Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, how would you compare it?
Psychologically, mentally, I mean, Bachelor is somewhat close. It's, 2 years of Special Forces, 5 people had finished, 3 people have been from Bachelor Nation. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Special Forces is only 8 days, which a lot of people were surprised to find that out, people who watched it. And they were very clear about every episode was a day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, I couldn't imagine it being more than 8 days.
Yeah.
It was hell on earth, psychologically and physically. Bachelor is a whole different animal in terms of the psychological. You're truly alone in Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
Special Forces, you're not alone. In fact, you're
with a lot of people.
You have a community. I mean, thank God I had Tyler there.
Yeah.
Thank God I had JoJo there. We all supported each other. We were all, having each other was the part that got us through.
Yeah.
Fucking Bachelor, you can't trust anyone. Can't trust producers, can't trust your castmates who are all vying for the same person. You're truly emotionally by yourself. It's very challenging, and that can last up to 9 weeks. And that's a long time to be by yourself emotionally without a support system. And so,
okay,
but they're different, but both equally challenging.
Both equally challenging. Sounds like Special Forces might have been a little bit more mentally enduring, but I don't know if you could put a timestamp on pain because
it's different. I mean, at Special Forces, I was truly suffering.
Yeah.
For 8 days.
Right.
Truly suffering the last 3 days.
Right.
Like I was just literally trying to get to the next hour.
Yeah, and I don't think you can do a timestamp on this stuff. Like we're sitting in Aloe and they have their cold plunges. You go in there for 3 minutes, and it could be torture. So like all different things.
So it was that for like 3 days.
Right, for 3 days. So saying 9 days and 9 weeks is irrelevant. But Nick, 2023, huge year for you. You just told us a little bit about it. Sounds like going to be a therapist is on the radar, but it wasn't this year. We'll see what happens.
Oh, that's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
I just had a lot going on.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up full circle.
But I absolutely, it's not a matter of if, it's when. It's just finding the time and maybe not, expecting my first kid and launching a media company. And I'm a big believer and, there's 2 great times to work really hard, and that's when either things are going really great or when things aren't going so great.
Yeah.
Right now things are going really well for my show, and me and my team we're using it as an opportunity to double and triple down on our efforts and keep making sure that we keep the momentum going, and we really love what we do, and right now that's the focus. But I that's kind of being a therapist is something I really want to do for like kind of the last chapter of my professional career.
Interesting.
I find that I'm my hope is that we'll be a lot more calm.
Okay, well, that will be more calm. That's probably the next time we're going to have you on this show is when you sell this media company for millions and millions, and then you become a therapist. Nick, you're killing it every aspect, from the podcast to the media company. Your wedding coming up, soon to be father. 100 million plus downloads is the goal this year. We heard some numbers for you. We really appreciate you being on Trading Secrets, but we got to finish with one trading secret. So think about the last 2 years specifically. What is one trading secret we can't get in a textbook from a professor, TikTok or YouTube tutorial we can only get from your career success? What would you say it has been?
Really think long game, big picture, and don't burn bridges.
I like that. Don't burn bridges. I like
Which is something that people in Bachelor Nation do all the time.
Yeah, we're very good at that. Oh, yeah.
You just never know. You just never know who's going to work for someone else someday, and you just never know who you're going to run into, and you can't predict the future. So be consistent, plan ahead, and just keep grinding, man.
There you go. I like that. I think I'm going to say the trading secret I learned from this episode was what you said just as you wrapped up, and it was the 2 times you work really hard or when you need to do better or you're killing it. I think most people, when they're doing really well, take their foot off the gas.
Yeah,
and that's the
agree,
exact opposite of what you've done. And I think in the last 2 years, your foot was on the pedal. And when the foot was on the pedal, not only did you press harder, you got other people pressing harder with you. And I think that's been huge for you. So congrats on all your success. And thank you for being back on. And where can everyone find everything you got going?
Just check us out on the Viall Files 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays for the most part. For all the other stuff we're doing, just you'll find out once you start listening to our show. Nick Viall on Instagram and TikTok, and check us out wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube.
I love it. And you also have a Viall Files Plus, right?
Yeah, we have a premium subscription.
Yep.
We do multiple shows a week behind that. It's free to sign up. So go to viallfiles.com and check that out.
I love it. Well, Nick, thank you for being on this episode of Trading Secrets.
Thanks for having me, bud.